Well, staying with the banking industry, the EU is to call time on bankers living it up. Officials in Brussels have struck a provisional deal which would create a cap on bonuses. The move would cap bankers' bonuses at 1 year of the annual salary or up to 2 years if shareholders approve it. Let's get more on this now. Chris Roebuck is a visiting professor with the Cass Business School and has held a number of senior roles in the banking industry. Oh, well, Chris, where do we start? What do you make of this today?
It's interesting. As usual, what's happening is we're muddling up a certain number of issues here. First issue is the principle of bonuses, performance-related pay, a good principle? And yes, it is, because in general terms, people perform better that way, and it applies to car salesmen, estate agents, even public sector workers. So that principle is a good idea. The question is whether the degree to which the bonus reflects real performance is accurate and whether the bonus is too much. That applies globally, but here what's happening is the EU is attempting to put a cap on something that is effectively global within the EU, and that is going to cause problems for EU banks because American and Asian banks will not be subject to the same rules.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, Chris, when we look at the bonus culture, because, you know, a lot of bankers here in the EU, particularly the City of London that the BBC have been speaking to today, say, you know, this is actually going to hamper growth and talent here in the EU because we'll just go across the shores and go to Asia and the US where we can get really big bonuses. Why would we need to work in Europe?
Well, it's even worse than that, to be perfectly honest, because this only applies to EU banks. What that means is that a British banker in London doesn't actually have to leave London. They can walk across the road to Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs or one of the Asian banks and be paid more. It also means that the EU banks, HSBC, RBS in particular, who are competing in both the United States and in Asia, will not be able to pay as much as their competitors in those markets. The key issue is the EU is trying to solve a global problem with local regulation, and you cannot do that.
But maybe, Chris, apologies for interrupting, but maybe, you know, they're setting the precedents here that actually they're responding to dissatisfaction by the public, by shareholders in particular, that are saying, you know, this bonus culture within the banking industry actually has contributed globally to the banking crisis that we have seen unfold, and something needs to be done here.
I think, again, what we're doing is we're dealing with sound bites here. You know, the politicians are quite happy to say it was bonuses that caused the problem. Actually, when you do the analysis, when you look at what the experts are saying, it was not bonuses that did it. Bonuses might have accounted for 10% of the problem, but there were many other technical issues, many issues caused by governments themselves, many issues caused by regulators and poor leadership that actually made the financial crash happen. And it was triggered not in Europe, but in the United States. So the involvement of the EU is a valuable contribution, but if they're doing it in the wrong way, it just makes life difficult.
OK, Chris, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us, Chris Roebuck there. Do continue the debate online, of course, on Facebook. We want to hear what you think. Stay with us. You're watching Impact. I'm Babita Sharma.